Brian, you are a sight for sore eyes. It is so good to see you. I think it's been like 3 years since the last time we did. I think we were all locked down the last
It's
time we did this.
it's been too long. It's
It's
been
been
too
too
long,
long.
definitely.
Good to see you.
Good seeing you.
First off, I want to thank you. If you're listening to this and you don't consume the stuff that Brian and team puts out about what's going on in our industry, Brian, you're focused on improving the lives of, I think, primarily agents and everyone else who works in managers, everyone else who works in the contact center. As
Yeah.
someone who I put on that headset many, many years ago and have worked in and around a contact center all of my life, I'm grateful for the work you do. But I got to tell you, the report bums me out. It is not a good bedtime reading story.
Unless you're an insomniac and it can put you to sleep, maybe. But
Exactly. It is not. It is not. It has a happy-ish ending of the way forward, but it's quite damning where we are. So I just
Yeah.
want to start there. Today I want to have a conversation with you about the contact center job, agents, support people. It is not, let me be euphemistic and say it is not a great job today in general. There are exceptions.
their experience is
Yes.
not great.
It's not
Correct.
great. I want to talk about how the heck did we get here?
Yeah.
And
Good place.
I
to
do
start.
this thing where when I am on interviews and people outside the industry ask me when there's history of customer service, I like to not go back. I go back to the 1700s. No, not AD, BC. So 1750 BC, we get this guy who buys copper from someone else, and he takes a tablet, as one does those days, and he puts 490 words on the tablet complaining about the quality of the copper, the treatment, the service his slave got from the guy selling the copper, right?
Yeah.
Sounds
How upset do you have to be to etch that many words?
like it was aggressive etching was going on there. And so fast forward, many things happen in between. We do inventions, we do the thing. I'm fast forwarding here, ladies and gentlemen, but we get to a place where industrialization happens and we industrialize every facet of our lives. And then for a while, service was still largely in person, even after the invention of the telephone, until, of course, the 1960s. Particularly, there's a lawsuit in and around 1964. The Ford Motor Company had this recall, and a federal judge mandates that they needed to provide a toll-free way for people to be able to call in and schedule the recall. And that becomes the oxygen that gives us Rockwell, that gives us the ACD.
Yeah.
And then,
The
mail
courts
orders.
had to give us customer service.
Exactly. So then, of course, like anything, once it becomes a thing, we industrialize the heck out of it. We try to make it faster, more efficient, do more of it. And it has produced an economy in and of itself. It's produced trillions of dollars of economic activity over the years. And I feel like that's where we still are. What I haven't told in the story that I'd love your perspective is, did we industrialize the humans? Like, it's an interesting thing to industrialize, right? In most things, it's a machine, you're making a thing. And here the product is two people talking.
Yeah.
Do you think, did we industrialize the two people talking parts?
It's interesting you use the word industrialize. So I'll go back into a lot of the things that we study, and I'm going to go back to the Industrial Revolution. And one of the main things that we study and utilize is this whole concept of meaningful work, which really got its start as a body of research during the Industrial Revolution.
Interesting.
Because so many people were then going to assembly lines and they were saying, my work is no longer meaningful. So they decided to study all of this. And what's interesting about the key characteristic of meaningful work is my work is meaningful when I make someone else's life better.
Hmm.
So it's transcendent.
Right.
And what's great is when people have meaningful work, they stay longer, they're engaged, and they're high performers, and they
Right.
do a great job. So all of these good things, but when you started to take a look at the Industrial Revolution, we had this shift of, before this, like somebody had their job or profession or what they would, do. They kind of typically knew the person they were working with. It's part of the community. And it was very much a relationship thing. They knew that they were taking care of other people and whatever service that they were providing. They took that pride and they really wanted to help other people. So then you get to the Industrial Revolution, and it became this shift from kind of the serving humans to, great, now it's about production and it's about the product. It is about efficiency. It
Hmm.
is about profit. It
Hmm.
is, all of these things. And unfortunately, since then, one of the biggest keys has been how we manage these things that, are called corporations. Because they birthed out of this whole area. Now you have all of these people who join together under a company and or a corporation. And so how do you manage that many people? How do you scale this? Well, unfortunately, the focus became much more on, well, it's all about the process. Even back then, it's about the technology and
Right.
how do we just manufacture things in the lowest, price or lowest cost we can, and sell it for the highest price. So unfortunately, our whole management style
Right.
has been adopted from the Industrial Revolution, and it's worldwide.
It
This
is.
spread worldwide.
It is. Um, to just double click into that for a second. So I think, right, if you think about the units of production for other things that are not this, right? So like how many widgets of the thin did you thin? How many shirts
Yes.
did you produce? And you saying that, I've kind of always known this internally, but to verbalize that the units of profession of production in my trade happens then to be words spoken between two people.
Yeah.
So no wonder the obsession became something like average handle time, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't have any other language in the industrial, right? I need to know.
Correct.
uh,
And one of the things that was really lost, and we have to remind ourselves today, is, so profitability of a, say, corporation, company, whatever you want to, organization, depends primarily on human behavior.
yeah.
Because you have, if you're somebody who has, either B2C or B2B, customers, it is humans who decide whether they're going to buy, whether they're going to continue to buy from you, and refer and, kind of spread the word.
Right.
And what's interesting about that is, as I always like to quote, and in our report, I quote one of my most favorite research reports done by Gallup that was published in 2005 in Harvard Business Review, called Manage Your Human Sigma. And they go through this study and say, well, humans make decisions
Hmm.
more based on emotion than
Right.
rationality. And what impacts emotion? It's actually human to human contact and this idea of trust and everything else. So as we want to focus on, hey, how do we do this cheap, quick, all these other things in this manufacturing style, we've lost that the most important thing is impacting human behavior. So what does that human want? We
Hmm.
got to address their needs. And if humans, because the big thing is, we have to also remember and remind ourselves today, humans decide our market, how they act. We can't tell them how to act. We can't make them, jump through our hoops. Otherwise, we're not as successful. So people still want to talk to humans. Customers still want human customer service.
No, of course. I mean, I think the evidence is borne out by, I'm now in like pushing my third decade of doing this. So I was fortunate to watch this. Like I watched the 90s, and as a technologist, I was trying to make money selling automation to contact centers, mostly by building the most sophisticated things like IVR to deflect and what have you. But
Yeah.
even then, customers pushed back. And then there was an acceleration of, okay, you want humans, but how can I make that human thing efficient, cheaper? Then we went, outsourcing. And by the way, I've spent months and months and months of my life in places like the Philippines and Bogota and all of those places. And I think fantastic. I've watched places transform. So this is not any of that, but it was just simply like,
Yeah.
like we could see they wanted humans and like, yeah, no, American humans, they tend to want a lot more money. Fine. Let me go find other. And then we pushed and then we pushed.
Yes.
And then every now and then there is like these technology pieces. Oh, by the way, the humans we had, we industrialized it. Like we were counting their words spoken per minute, average handle
Yes.
time by another name. When you can go to the bathroom, what words to say. Like the bias was towards do this thing more efficiently. And so we ended up with an entire generation. If you are a customer service person who grew up in the industry in the last 15, 20 years, I want to say I am sorry. Because every job you had industrialized your humanity out of you, gave you a script, gave you a path, right?
Yes. Basically, customer service has been dehumanized. When you take a look at, once again, this whole idea of, so we're in business, yes, to make profit, but what is really going to make the impact from we need customers and we need, lifetime value, and everybody knows those things. But what we've done is, and once again, the same Human Sigma article mentions is you can't take a manufacturing approach to customer service. You can't manufacture interactions. And to do one, like this assembly line of interactions. Well, we've seen this before. We're going to have the same script. We're going to have the same process. We're going to have all these same things. And then it's like, why doesn't it work out? Well, they point out in one of the largest studies done, at least at that time, was what kind of impact does the agent have on the customer experience? And they say the result and the finding is almost their entire customer experience is dependent on the agent they interact with. So it's like, wait, we're trying to manufacture all these things, but the most important thing during the interaction is the agent. And what we've done is we have put the agent as a cog in the wheel, as a part, rather than, no, actually, they're the ones who really can emotionally connect to our customers, who truly impact their emotional satisfaction, which that deals with their behavior and profitability. When you have just rational satisfaction, your behavior looks the same as if you were dissatisfied.
Yeah, I think about it a little bit like convenience stores, right? It says, I think about it like what organizations are trying to do is like every person I talk to is telling me, they use all kinds of fancy words, but how do we, get rid of the pesky, costly people?
Yes. Well,
And there's
just the cost.
and there's a fine. But what I think no one has bothered to figure out is what you've said or think about is if the only thing differentiated about you, the only part of the experience that causes any sort of emotional deal are the humans. Well, what happens when you just AI the heck out of everything and you just make the whole thing sterile and efficient and fast and what have you? Well, then the next guy just comes in and buys, you know, AI for a penny cheaper than you. Wait,
Yes,
and then we go, but you're going to quickly find out the one that ends up being sticky is the one who can figure out how to have emotional human to human connection. Of course,
correct.
aided by technology. We keep mystifying technology as though, like, you know what was technology many years ago? A fork. Like, we think technology is technology. There's a social scientist who sort of lays it out in the best way. The technology is the extension, right, of our physical bodies. Like, that's ultimately what it is. And
Yeah,
it's just,
as a tool to be used by humans.
right. It's
Yeah,
how do I extend my physical body? My voice cannot carry from here to you, in hundreds and hundreds of miles away. So how do I do that? And that's how technology do that. But before we even go there, I want to go back to what you said, and I want you to put some data to it. You said customer experience. I was reading your deal, and you said customer experience is at a 17-year low.
yeah,
By the way, I like the ACSI deal. And SCSI, we were having progress, small, from about 2006 till about 2018. Minimal progress. Wasn't on a straight line, but minimal progress. And
okay.
as we sit here, we have erased all of the gains, right, over that 12-year period. We are now back to the early 2000s. And like we have eliminated all the gains. So I don't think anyone who's listening to this, we're all customers, is going to argue with you about like the customer experience. The
Yeah,
one that really punched me in the gut was what you said about the agent experience.
yeah,
So dive into that for a second, because I was reading the customer experience. I was like, yeah, the
yeah,
agent
yeah.
experience.
It's
Just because
not good. I'm a
I've just
customer.
heard
I
that
know it's not good.
yeah,
Yeah,
I've just heard, like, I've heard agents now have better tools. Some companies are being edgy and like, we do not measure average handle time at the agent level anymore. Still do, but there's
yes,
religion around the agent experience. So tell me one, give me the
yes.
state of things. That one surprised me.
Okay, so once again, you know, based upon Ryan's strategic advisory, which Peter Ryan, who's great analyst, he puts out a report every year, and from him, this is internal centers, not outsourced.
Right.
Internal, the global number is about 7 to 8% monthly turnover, which for internal, wow, that's pretty high. Can
Yeah.
only imagine how much
Oh,
worse it is for
just forget
outsourced.
it. Yeah.
And then when you take a look at Gallup, tracking, engagement, well, and they're tracking also now, quiet quitting. Their estimate is, and this isn't just in call centers, this is everywhere. So you imagine it's got to be worse in call
It
centers.
is.
It's 59% of people are quiet quitting. So when you take a look at that, it's like they're either quitting or they're quiet quitting.
Right.
And
Right.
so either way, they don't want to engage. And what's interesting, from some other research, Ideal Dialogue, which a company I'm familiar with, there's a study based on what do customers want from an agent interaction. And they said two things that are really, really interesting. The top two things. Number one, and that is, I felt like the agent was sitting next to me and we were working on the problem together. And a human side, it's like, well, yeah. Of course, that seems to make sense. But when you take a look at the analytical side of this and the psychology that's there, what they're really saying are the best interactions
Right.
are when we kind of get rid of this wall where it's a relationship of I'm the customer, you're the company,
Right.
you're the representative of that company. And what supersedes it is human to human.
Right.
Our value system. When we can act as humans, and when you take a look at it, so that's what the customer wants. What's interesting is the second thing the customer said was, it's what the agent wants.
Right.
The agent benefited from the interaction. And that's where we see this idea of meaningful work of, wow, even the customer can sense the meaningful work aspect. And so when you then look at this from the agent's point of view, the agent says, I want the human to human relationship to supersede it. However, why can't it? And the reason is there's a third party involved in that interaction, and it is the company. And the agent's in between trying to please the company. I got to do this script. I got to hit this metric. I got to, do this quick enough. I have to do this policy, all of these things, but I want to help the customer because that's they're in need and all of these things. And that's where my meaningful work comes from. But at the end of the day, they got to choose one or the other if they're not in alignment. And they choose the company because they want to keep their job. Then it's too painful to interact and engage with customers. So you have this disengaged kind of person who you're speaking to all the time. And that is the norm.
You put that, much more succinctly than I have. In my book, I talk about like talking to a person in a contact center is like talking to your crooked cousin who's wearing a wire. Like, like
someone's looking over my shoulder.
Like, why are you speaking like this? Have I resolved all of your issues today? Because they are listening.
Correct. It's dehumanizing. It's not how humans interact. We actually did at one of our clients. We did a session for them with their company gathering, and one of the things we did was say, "Hey, everybody, before lunch, write on a note card, what are the things that you can't stand when you hear it from an agent?" And then what we did is we came back and we went, during lunch, we looked through all of them and said, okay, we then had the executive who sponsored us do a role play of we're at a party. And then we acted as an agent.
Right.
And like, hi, how are you today? Just by the way, this call might be recorded, for quality, Oh, can I please have your contact information? All of these things that are like, it's weird.
Right. No,
but
no
for
one
some
talks like
reason,
that.
we've accepted this weirdness and dehumanized interaction in a call center.
We can keep going. And we're going to have you on. Before I let you go on this episode, I want to go to. You are going in a direction I don't hear from most people who are trying to solve this thing, which is why I just love talking to you about this. So I included, until I started consuming your stuff, I had said to myself, well, I've been writing The Agent Experience Sucks for over 10 years. I have my most viral article I've ever written, I said, service has too much in common with prostitution. Like I've been provocatively trying to get this message out. So I've been upfront. But what I missed, I used to think at the top of the list were tools and freedom. So by tools, I just meant, oh my gosh, they've got blue screens, they're swivel chairing and what have you. And now that I'm thinking about it, the industry did hear me and other people's cries, and now every agent now has 3 monitors, and they're more pissed off than they were before this.
Yes.
But on a serious note, we now have modern CRMs, and I think there has been massive improvement in the tool set. I'm not saying it's great. In the tool set, Screen Pop is now popular, but it hasn't done anything to move the needle. So I'd love for you to comment about why the things we've been trying didn't work. I mean, the pizza party, Brian, the pizza parties, that was supposed to fix everything.
Yeah.
And the monitors and the shiny new screens with better UI. You are telling me we've been wasting our time and money?
Well, there is some value
Okay.
to, people need to be successful with customers. Yeah. Agents need to be. So if there's a tool that helps, great. But right now, technology is one of their biggest complaints. Like, I have to toggle through all this. It's so hard to find everything. And then when you take a look at, this whole job as how it's all the things I have to learn, and then the stress level of it. Do you know, because we ask, and hey, anybody who listens to this, go ask agents, when you were taking your very first call, what stress level were you at? On 1 to 5. It's going to be, we get people to say it was still 10.
Yeah.
So it's stressful. But when you take a look at it, the thing that really triggered it was this one comment, that if you had to say, when did I start having the lights kind of come on to this, is had an agent in a focus group, and they said, I love my job. I love helping customers, and I am really good at it. I've been doing it for 10 years. I just wish my company would let me do it.
Oh.
And it's like, wow.
Oh.
Wow. So the problem is how we're managing the agent. And that agent is the most important part of the customer experience and drives customer behavior of buying and retention. So, okay, where do we start? Where's really the big opportunity? And is what we try and do is the job is really the focus, but we try and have pizza parties. We try and have fun at work. We try and, hey, and we're corporate social responsibility and all these things that are good. But that doesn't have the impact on retention, engagement, and performance that we're looking for. Neither does pay. So the real opportunity is if we can enable an agent to be really more themselves and have the training and the tools that they need to be successful on a regular basis with customers. They love their job and they do a great job at it. And who benefits? The agent, the company, and the customer. So it's kind of that win-win-win, but that's left to another day about how you get there.
Well, we have to wrap, but it reminds me a little bit of many years ago. My kid broke his arm, and I take him to the ER, and we're waiting. It's gonna be a while, and he's like in pain. And while we're waiting in this room, the nurse goes, well, it looks like you're having allergies. I could give you something for that. And I go, well, thanks.
Huh.
Uh, I would like my broken arm fixed. I also have allergies, and I think that's the same thing with this pizza business and all of these other things we look to fix. Yeah, but the real reason I walked in here, like the thing I want to do, but it's because I felt like she couldn't solve the broken arm problem. Like she's or and so it's
Yes.
like, let me just give you, well, I see an allergy thing. I've got whatever allergy
Correct.
meds here. You're sneezing and we can relieve that. And we took it and we're thankful. And I think that's where we are. So I want to move. I cannot wait for you to break down how we actually solve this. So Brian, you've got to come back on. But before I let you go, you know, uh, parting question to you is
Okay.
this would tease our next conversation. Are you an optimist about this topic?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I've seen it.
Okay.
I've seen, I've seen the end result and what this looks like. It's amazing. And it's amazing for everybody.
Okay. Yeah, that's that. We are looking for that conversation. Brian, it's good to see you.
Good seeing
I
you.
cannot wait for the next part of this conversation. Thanks for coming on, and for those of you listening, please continue to like, subscribe, and share this show wherever you are. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thank you.
You've been listening to an Amos Talks production.